Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark for the Dr. William Clark podcast. So glad to have you joining me today, and I hope that your weekend was great. I hope that it was productive and that you continue to move forward towards your goals, the goals that mean so much to you, and the goals that are pushing you towards the greatness that you're targeting for yourself in 2020. This is the new year. This is the year where new beginnings are fresh, right? And it's not just a new year. Quite frankly, I think, what's been clear to me is that everyone has been talking about not just the new year, but also the fact that this is a brand new decade. This is a decade beginning again for so many people. For those of you who are listening and watching, we made it. We made it to not only a new year, but a new decade, and it's exciting to know that new beginnings are have not avoided us. So if the last 12 months, if the last 10 years have not been what you wanted, if it hasn't been everything that you expected, the great thing is. The new year is here. The new year is upon us, and the new decade is upon us. So how about we focus on making the best of our lives for the next 12 months, for the next 10 years? How about that? And when we start doing that, it really pushes us towards becoming greater than what we were, and it creates momentum for ourselves and within ourselves, where we can now look at, you know, how do we continue to do this good stuff, this great stuff, no matter what it is? And so when you start to look at it from a 12-month perspective, a 10-year perspective, you start to look long term, and it creates and establishes a normalcy of what you want to accomplish. And so I'm excited to be in the new year, and I'm excited to be in the new year with you, joining me on my podcast show, joining me live on the video, and however you're capturing this podcast. So as we indicated in some of the shows last week, this is going to be a podcast that focuses on fundraising strategies for nonprofit leaders. And if that is you, welcome back. Thank you for staying the course with us over the past handful of years that we've been doing this podcast. We're now focusing our attention a lot more this year on fundraising strategies and how to sustain the great work that we're into. And for some of you that have been wondering, like, why that topic? Well, to be honest with you, we've been hitting on this topic for quite a while, and we've been talking about fundraising in some form or some fashion for a number of years. I've just included other topics into it because I do believe that fundraising is not just an isolated thing. It's indicative of the infrastructure you have within your organization. It's indicative of the leadership you have within your organization. It's indicative of the vision you have within your organization. And so all those things kind of feed into what it means to effectively fundraise. And for those of you that have been keeping up with my work, my book Sustainable, that was published in, I believe, 2015, 2016, literally it's a fundraising book. It's a book that talks about building the infrastructure within your organization to continuously fundraise and to generate revenue. And I have been focused on this topic for quite a while. If you even look at my first book, Leverage, it has a very strong message about revenue generation personally and within the organizational structure, and how to do that. And so all the components I write about from a leadership standpoint feed into how to create revenue within your organization. And so we're going to focus on fundraising. And I think as we think about this topic of fundraising and what it means for so many people, without fundraising, without the ability to generate revenue now, real time, for your nonprofit, it becomes difficult for you to serve, right? You can't articulate a vision of service and programmatic operations if you don't have any money. If you can't pay bills, if you can't pay staff, if you can't pay your rent, if you can't pay overhead costs, if you can't pay for whatever the case may be. And so fundraising is essential to what we do as a nonprofit community, and it needs to be a part of, if not the essential piece of what we talk about, because it does influence leadership decisions, hiring decisions, both at the executive level and on down. It influences invitations to be on boards of directors. It influences partnerships. It influences all types of things that ultimately have an impact on our customer, who is the key focus, the vital focus of our work. And so, this is what we're going to be talking about this year. And I hope that you're on the ride with us this year. If you know somebody in your space of influence that needs to be connected to this podcast, be so kind right now to just one, like, subscribe, comment, rate us on whatever platform you're using, and then share this podcast show and share this entire show with your audience, with your friends, because everything we've talked about in the past still has a complete impact on what we're going to talk about this year. And some of the stuff I've been talking about in the past, leadership, strategy, innovation, still will find its way into the podcast. But I do want to focus our attention on fundraising. So, with that being said, I want to talk about, for our podcast, for our episode today and this week, rather, I want to talk about how to condition your mind for fundraising. I talk quite a bit about my background in my webinar, free webinar, which is entitled "How to Triple Fundraising Results Without Chasing Funders." The link will be right below here, or in the show notes if you listen to the podcast. But in my free webinar, I talk about my story, right? About how I came to hate fundraising and then to absolutely love it, right? The two extremes. I didn't come into it loving it and embracing it for all that it was initially when I started my career. But I really did start hating it, and I started hating it because I saw something happen to my wife, who was in the industry before me or around the same time as me, and what happened to her was what I thought was the norm, and quite frankly, it still is the norm for so many people. She had to go back to work and help write a grant for her organization at the time, and I accompanied her on a ride back to work, and it was after 8 o'clock at night, after she worked the full day, and then she didn't get back in the car till 2. Yeah, I'm outside the entire time, sleeping in the car. Didn't even realize how much time went by. But that was the norm, and the sad part was, I was hearing similar stories from other organizations, and it was from that point that I said, I'm never going to fundraise. I will never be a part of a fundraiser campaign. I will never be a part of the process. I will refuse it no matter what. And that went on for a long, long time, and then things changed where my passion started to develop. And it wasn't a seminal fundraising moment within a nonprofit space. Actually, it was a fundraising moment that took place when I was rebuilding my real estate business after the financial crash. And I fell in love with sales and marketing and all the good stuff that comes along um, with building a business, and that was the very beginning. That was the beginning for me to learn how to love fundraising, to raise money, to build a business, and to build a network and infrastructure that is beyond me as an individual sole proprietor. And so, as I was doing that, there were some other things that kind of happened, and then my career started escalating, and then I started putting two and two together, and I said, oh, okay. So what I saw was not normal, and no matter how normalized that behavior is of nonprofits doing things at the last minute, wasting energy and time writing grants, writing tons of grants, submitting things 2 seconds before the deadline. Not having a process for it. That is not normal. That is normal for people, but that's not normal. And it doesn't have to be normal. And that's when I realized, oh, my background and everything that I was good at can have a positive and significant impact on fundraising outcomes. And I started to see massive results from that. Growth in numbers, growth in dollars raised, growth in number of organizations I was able to help, growth in performance overall, and just changing people's lives. And so we came up with a strategy, and I fell in love with it. And so here I am today, And so what we're talking about is how to condition your mind for fundraising. It is a process. It is a journey. It's something that does take time. But I'm here to tell you that you can, in fact, condition your mind to fundraise. And so there are a couple of thoughts that I do want to share with you. And for those listening on the podcast, you're getting the full episode as we speak. And you're going to get the full episode in one setting. For those watching on certain platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram, you're going to get it in pieces just because of the limitations of the platform. So there you have it. So, how to condition your mind for fundraising? There are a couple of thoughts I want to share with you. I think, the place we need to start is to talk about having a clear vision for what you want to accomplish. And w- it's hard. It is hard to do anything without a clear vision. It's hard to find success. It's hard um, to perform at your best when you don't have a clear vision. A clear vision is an idea of what you want to accomplish. It is literally an outline of a future that you believe is for you. And one of the things that I've been teaching on in the past couple weeks or so is that when you have a vision and it's an outline of what you think is going to happen. First of all, it's a mind thing. It starts up in the mind. But two, you got to be okay with the fact that the vision you have does not have any details in it. No details are filled out. It's not specific. The vision itself has general specifics attached to it. For example, I want to raise $100,000 in 12 months. That's an outline. I want to raise $1 million in 12 months. It's an outline. We want to create and launch our $5 million campaign and have it completed within 5 years. That's an outline. And it's an outline because there's no specifics tied to it. And when a board or a CEO sets the vision and they provide context and a story behind why, again, it's still devoid of details. So, let's say you have a $5 million campaign. The context is just for the sake of argument, we've noticed that there's been an uptick in traffic in all of our sites. And when we've noticed that traffic, we've also noticed that the needs of the community has evolved and increased from what we originally thought 3 years ago when we wrote our most recent strategic plan. And after thinking through the problems and the issues of our client base and the community, we think we have a solution to solve these problems. And so we're going to have to build, let's say, a new facility, a new community center. We're going to have to increase our presence in a number of specific spots within the community and add more staff. We need to build new programming, etc., and also enhance our digital footprint in the process. And this entire project, this entire journey is going to cost $5 billion, right? Just for the sake of argument. And when you look at that, right, that is a story attached to a vision of an outline of 5 million. The story is the context for why we need to raise $5 million. And so when you look at that, the natural question for operations staff is, all right, cool, how? Some board members may say, great, how? Right? The how is the filling in of the details. It's the coloring in of the vision. But it is a separate process from casting or creating a clear vision. So, as the person who is the CEO, executive director of a nonprofit, as the person who is in charge of fundraising, whether you're the vice president of fundraising development, director of development, etc., or an investor board member, it begins with having clear clarity on what your vision is. What is the outline of what you want to accomplish? And do not get that confused with the details of how. The how is a different conversation. The how is a different process. The how may require you to stop doing what you think is good and stop doing what you normally do to raise money and do something totally different. All right. This is why when I talked about my book Sustainable, which if you're watching on the video podcast, it's over my left shoulder here. And that book talks about creating the infrastructure for fundraising and raising revenue differently. If you're going to go outside the traditional means, grants, individual campaigns, corporate campaigns, etc., and if you're going to shift or even get better at that stuff, you have to create the infrastructure within your organization. And it's not just reorging your organization, it's beyond that. You got to get the book Sustainable, which talks in detail about how to do that. But separate what it means to have clarity of vision versus the details. And we're talking about how to condition your mind for fundraising. And I've helped clients, I helped organizations, I've helped students over the years clarify vision. And many times in our podcast over the years, I've talked about the tool that I use to help people develop their vision. How to develop a clear vision, a purpose, right, for what needs to be done. It does talk about a little bit the how. The how does evolve over time, but it can be done, right? But you need a clear vision. You need a clear outline of what you're trying to accomplish. The second thing you want to work on when you're trying to condition your mind for fundraising is to establish a value system that supports that vision you've created. The value system is a set of core beliefs that says, in order to fulfill the vision, this is what we will do or stand for as a part of the process. For example, you may say we have a $5 million campaign, and our value system is to partner with individuals, organizations, and entities that have the same concern for our community. That's a value. You may say we will not take money from organizations that have contributed to the problem we've identified. That's a value. And lastly, you may say that we want to raise money that will have the capacity to renew itself. So renewable revenue sources as our only way of raising this money. It's a value system. So again, people who believe in the same thing we believe in, people who are not taking money from contributing negative forces, and then only taking money that has renewable capacity. That does not talk about the how you're going to do this, because again, even with the value system, there are still some pieces missing. But at least the value system outlines what you believe in, what you stand for, what you will not do, and it signals to the community, to the open market, to potential donors, to potential partners. It signals to them what they can expect if they decide to come on board with your organization and help raise this money. It's important to have a value system, because if things don't check off the list that it matters to you, then you find yourself accepting money from all types of groups that ultimately may not have the best interests of the community at heart as you see it, and who doesn't have the best interests of your nonprofit as you see it. And so it is vital for you to make sure there is clarity, there is purpose, there is meaning, there is security in your vision by way of having a strong set of values that govern all activity. The value system, and I'll say this too, the value system has an impact and should have an impact on the entire organization. This shouldn't just be impactful on the CEO and the person raising the money. The value system should matter to the operations and program staff, right? So if they're responsible for executing parts of the fundraising vision and executing the programmatic pieces, the value system of saying we're not going to work with people who have contributed to the problem should be programmatically instituted as well, right? So if you take money from an organization that has created some of the problems you're trying to fix, and you're not going to take any more money from them, right? Then it also stands to reason that you're not going to do business with them if that's what you believe in. Or if you're going to do business with them and not take their money, right, then you may say, we're going to do business with them with the intent of helping them transition their thinking, or helping them transition their approach, or change harmful behaviors, right? However you slice it, the idea is to have the same value system trickle down from the board and the CEO all the way through operations. That way, there's consistency in the strategies that are being executed, and it has a ripple effect on fundraising approaches. It has a ripple effect on the messaging that you're selling to funders and partners and donors. It has a ripple effect on how you spend your money, how you structure your budgets. It has a ripple effect on how you brand all that you're doing. This is all a part of conditioning your mind for fundraising, right? This is what it's about. And for those of you starting out in fundraising, trying to fundraise for a passion project or a ministry or a new nonprofit, a startup, these are the things you got to be thoughtful about when you're conditioning your mindset for fundraising. So we talked about you got to have a clear, super clear vision. We talked about you got to have an established value system that supports the vision. The next thought I want to share with you is you got to surround yourself with a team of people that believe in the same vision and have the same value system. So we just got finished talking about this, but it was in context to the money, right? So you have this $5 million campaign. You're trying to raise money to solve a problem and to build a better, more equipped community center, right? One of the value systems you talked about is, not taking money from contributing negative forces, companies that created part of the issue you're trying to resolve, right? So you already know what you stand for, right? I think we talked about not taking money from those sources, making sure you're collecting money that is renewable, and raising money from sources that have the same belief system as you, right? Okay, so you have those three value systems. Now we're talking about this point of as a part of conditioning your mind for fundraising, you got to surround yourself with people, a team of people that believe in the same vision, have the same value system. Okay. Now, the team of people, you can look at this from an internal and external perspective, right? Internally, you can control that very well by the mechanisms of hiring people, right? If you're responsible for fundraising in your organization, you're the vice president or director of development, and you're raising funds, who you hire on your team can be controlled by you. And if they don't value what you value, right? If they don't have the same vision or the same value system, you don't have to hire them. Okay. So that's a part of it. Now let's go external, which is more challenging. And it's more challenging because nonprofits have limited resources that they can draw from as they see it, as they think. And so it does become more critical for you to be clear with everyone around you, your partners, stakeholders, etc., what you expect, and you try not to offend folks and turn folks off while still raising major money. What you got to do, right? When you talk about surrounding yourself with people that have the same belief system as you got to make sure that everybody that is contributing to the fundraising process, whether they are passing out a flyer, passing on the word, fielding prospects, or whatever the case may be, people that are contributing in some way, somehow, that they're doing it knowing what you stand for, what you envision, what your purpose is, what you are trying to build up, what you're trying to create, what you're trying to establish. You don't want any brand ambassadors misrepresenting your vision, misrepresenting your value system. You want all your brand ambassadors following the talking points, if you will, of your organization. That we want to raise money from people who have the same beliefs, core beliefs that we have about our customer. We want to raise money from people who have not contributed to the problem we're trying to solve. And we want to raise the type of money that is renewable. That is our value system. And our vision for that value system is to raise $5 million for this specific campaign that fixes problem A, B, and C, and that allows us to build a new community center, whatever the case may be. All brand ambassadors that are associated with telling your story, sharing your vision, and sharing your values need to know that inside and out, so that they can represent your position. They can represent what you stand for. They can represent all that you are effectively. Because at the end of the day, if they misrepresent what you do, if they misrepresent what you stand for, if they misrepresent the goals that you have, then it's all for naught, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So you want to make sure everybody that's around you, both internally and externally, are plugged into what you're trying to do. They're plugged into your mission. They're plugged into your vision. Now, this gets even more detailed because the fourth idea and point I want to share with you when it comes to how to condition your mind for fundraising is you might want to strongly consider joining mastermind groups, engaging in training so that you are surrounded by other like-minded people to help you think through strategies that will help you achieve your goal. When you're part of a mastermind group, you're a part of a group of people who are trying to, for the sake of argument, raise major money, raise seven figures, eight figures. Maybe you're in the six-figure range, which is that's no easy feat either. We talk about that in my grant writing 101 webinar, how to raise six figures, how to triple results without chasing funders, right? But if you're a part of a mastermind group, what you're saying is I'm joining a portfolio of people who have the same vision of raising major money, whatever the amount is. And we're all trying to work through the most effective strategies. We may not be from the same community or city or state, but we're in the same profession and we're in the same boat and we're trying to figure it out. And what you're trying to get after by being a part of a mastermind group is what is Joe working on all across the country? And what can I learn from his successes and failures? And what can he advise me on as I start on my journey? What is Mary working on in the South? What is Carmen working on in the North? And what is Jose working on in the East that can help me save time, save energy, save money, save heartache so that I can be the most effective self as possible to raise this $5 million. The purpose of training, the purpose of mastermind groups is to save energy and time. Right? This is the purpose of it so that you can pay a fee to be in a learning environment so that you can accelerate your growth. This is why we are offering the Grant Writing 101 Masterclass. It's a fee so that you can learn all the tips and tricks to effectively write a grant and accelerate your progress and your outcomes for your nonprofit, your church, your ministry, no matter if you're a mature organization or you're just starting out. That's the purpose of being a part of training courses like the Grant Writing 101 Masterclass, like the upcoming mastermind groups we will be releasing sometime this year. It's a part of a learning environment, and it's almost like going to school, but in a truncated period of time, a concentrated topic with like-minded professionals who are hungry to see some serious and major results. Right? You got to open up your mind to joining these things, to being a part of these things. And it's not talked about often in our profession, where in the nonprofit profession, where we say that we're a part of mastermind groups. Because typically in the nonprofit world, we don't even budget for training and professional development for our staff, let alone our CEOs and seniors and C-suite folks. Right. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're at this point where you're saying, I'm going to make the investment or I'm going to make the ask of my board and my CEO, whoever, wherever you stand in an organization, to make this investment to be a part of a class, a workshop, or a mastermind group. Because I think it's going to be worth our time and energy to make this investment so that we can learn how to raise serious money and not make the same mistakes that we can learn from Jose, who made those mistakes last year and can save us all the energy, all the time of making those mistakes. So as you condition your mind, and we talk about having a team of people around you that have the same vision and value system, it goes deeper than that when you say you got to be a part of a mastermind group. You got to be a part of a group of people who are trying to do the same thing, create the same things, establish the same things. These mastermind groups can be they can be so transformational, if you will. They can be life impacting. They can impact your profession. They can impact how you view the world. They can impact how you view your service to your community. They can impact the sustainability of your organization. The classes you take, the trainings you take. Not all free trainings are great, right? You want to make an investment in your training, which is why we are asking our students of the Grant Writing 101 Masterclass to make an investment Because when you make an investment, you're saying, I'm serious about my process. I'm serious about the transition I'm going through. I'm serious about the transformation I'm going through. I'm serious about my organization raising major money and making it easier on myself and our team to actually do it so that we can spend more time serving or spend more time raising money in other ways to diversify our revenue sources. I can't tell you how powerful masterminds have been for me as a part of my own growth personally and professionally. Trainings that I've paid for and invested in, mentors that I pay to be a part of their groups, their learning environments. It has made a significant difference. I can't even tell you. I can't even put it into words. I can, but I'm not for this podcast. But I'm just telling you that those trainings have just been life changing, and I encourage you as part of this community to open up your mind to be a part of mastermind groups. So, lastly, the last step, I want to encourage you to um, the last thing I want to encourage you to do as a part of your um, process of conditioning your mind for fundraising is to lastly, as you've set the vision, you set your values, and you've established a team of people to help you get this done, and you've joined a mastermind group and trainings, execute at all cost with no limitations. Once your plan is set, once the vision is set, and as the vision gets colored in and all the details get filled out, you need to execute at all cost. What I'm specifically talking about is in the nonprofit community as professionals, we need to master what it means to follow a plan all the way through until the wheels fall off. It's vital for us to make sure that as we follow this plan, we are executing on everything that we've outlined in our plan to make sure it turns into a reality. If that's not happening, if that is not occurring in your space, in your profession, in your job, you need to look at yourself and you need to take inventory of what you need to do to make adjustments so that you can execute on the plan that you design to fundraise. Okay. Execution is the completion of the thought process, of the planning process, right? You cannot raise money if you don't execute the plan. And quite frankly, not to get off topic here, but if your plan doesn't feed into the vision, it's lost, right? So you want to make sure you have a clear vision and your plan is all that worked out, but you got to execute. You got to execute, 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 and not to let go. You need to be relentless and not let go of what the vision is until it has come to fruition. That is that is vital, that is key, that is essential for all of us as we look at ways to condition our mind for fundraising. You got to execute. So my hope is that as the new year gets kicked off, that you are positioning yourself to fundraise effectively. You're positioning yourself to do awesome work. You're positioning yourself to be effective and strategic and resourceful and impactful in your work because your clients, they're looking towards you for support in this way. And I truly believe that you can make it happen. Now, before you go, there are two things I want you to do. Share this podcast with a friend, like and subscribe, comment, rate us on the platform that you're utilizing to capture this particular podcast. And then also, I want you to join us for our upcoming free webinar, not their upcoming free webinar, which is tripling your results, how to triple your results without chasing funders. The link is below. Join us on our free webinar. We are hosting them every Thursday, and you're welcome to also join the replay on Sundays. So go ahead and register your free spot for our webinar coming up this Thursday and the replay on Sunday. And just follow the links there, and we'll be glad to get your seat secured. This is Dr. William Clark for the Dr. William Clark podcast. We'll see you in the next show. Peace.